I have just uploaded a two-part video about my new St. Petersburg White Nights colors. They aren't new, but they're new additions to my collection already, which I have a lot of colors by now. When I get back home, I'm on holiday right now. When I get back home, I'm curious to see how many colors I have in total. Some of them are repeated, and yeah, some of them are new. So just to show you what I have done now, so here is my pocket palette of 12 colors, and then here I have managed to squeeze in the latest additions. I have also taken, I think, burnt umber out and put the Payne's grey into here and keep it that way. So it's completely impractical because it obviously takes space away from mixing, but at the moment, like I said, until I sort out my palettes, when I get back home, I have no other way of keeping it, and I will probably need to put cling film, yes, I just said cling film, I know, over the palette just to keep the dust from going in, and obviously keeping it somewhere in the shade away from sun. It all sounds horrific, I know, but it will have to do just for now. So I know when I filmed my Hydrangea Daniel Smith illustration with the face, I have unfortunately cut out a lot of the process when I was filming. So I felt quite bad about it because, you know, the whole point was for you to see how I do it. So I thought I'll do a flower girl. I used the same flowers, which have now wilted and they don't look as great, but they're still perfect to work from. So I actually quite like wilted flowers. I always did, even back when I studied art A level. And yeah, I'm from UK, so we call it art A level, which means in college basically. So yeah, let me go ahead and use the ruby because that's a new color addition. So I'm going to really pack on ruby onto my brush size number 1. Also, before I start, so what I've done here is I have drawn 2 flowers that are looking onto me, so facing me, and then for some interest I like some flowers that are curled, looking to the side, just to break it up a little bit and create some more interest. So that's what I've done here. So I'm really going to make sure that I'm in the center of the screen. I'm going to put this color. This is going to be sort of fantasy color. It's not it's obviously not this pink here, as you can see, but that doesn't matter. You really don't need that. You can just paint, you can look at the actual flower and create any color you want. So here's what I'm doing. I'm just washing the brush out and then just dropping in some water here and there, and then letting the watercolor do its job. I like leaving white parts of the paper, but I do make sure it's not too much, and then just drop in water to make the watercolor flow. So essentially this is the technique that I enjoy most, and I think it's so beautiful. So I leave a little bit of a gap between the petals just so they don't flow in, but if I want them to flow in, I would obviously, for example, merge them over here and the water would flow quite easily. Make sure you really wash off your brush if you're using this particular color, ruby, because it's very pigmented, so it doesn't wash off immediately from your brush, and then you can, if you need clear water, that is, you will still have the color. So I'm going to do all in one color this time, just to keep it nice and simple. And just, oops, I think there possibly I went out of the video. And yeah, just to concentrate on the technique rather than color mixing in this video. So there we go. So with Hydrangea, you can see that the petals are overlapping a lot, and that is something that you might find quite overwhelming or challenging at first, because you have to really, when you draw it, you have to pay attention of how the flowers are, or how the petals are connected and how they're intermingling. So let's go back in and do the final one, which is just here at the back. If I'm not certain, if I can't see the pencil any longer because the watercolor is so bright, I then would have a glance at the actual flower to remind myself where that petal was going. So this particular petal is kind of hiding behind this petal, so this petal is overlapping it, but this petal is overlapping that petal. So let's go ahead, and here I will make them flow. So did you see I just touched it here, and so it's going to flow in, and that's going to give us an interesting effect. So really washing the brush out, leaving quite a bit of water in, and then if you kind of see that it's a bit too pale here, then just touch it and make it, guide the watercolor a little bit, and then over here if it's too dark and you want to create some interest, just drop in some water like that. That is literally all I am doing. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm concentrating mostly towards the center because that's the darkest part of the petal, and it becomes a little bit more pale towards the tip of the petal. So that's what I'm trying to do here as well. So here I wasn't sure, but it's actually, you see, this petal goes all the way like that. So there you go. If you want, you can do color in the centers as well, it's up to you. I prefer to leave them blank and simple, and just like that. I love this ruby color. When I was getting it, I kind of for a long time was considering whether to get it or not, and I'm so happy I did, because it's actually a lot more beautiful. I thought it would be a bit too kind of pinkish sort of thing, but in a good way, in a bad way. And it's actually very pretty, and I like it a lot, especially in a concentrated state. So that's in essence what we got here, and then I have these three left to color in, which it becomes a little bit more complicated here, so I'll try to make sure I'm filming this. So here is a petal that is literally facing that way, so you get hardly anything of it, and I need to create an illusion of curling sort of thing. So that's what I'm trying to do here, and then the petal underneath is twisted in a very funky way. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this petal. As you can see, I left a little bit of a gap to suggest that they're not one piece but two separate petals. So you can see you don't need to be a genius when it comes to watercolor. I think that's the beauty about watercolor, that really, like for example with oil paints, you really have to know what you're doing. With watercolor, you obviously need to know as well what you're doing, because you can mess up, but if you are persistent, you can learn it. Whereas I find that with oil paints, not everyone can do it. It's either you have it or you don't. I think that's my opinion. You might think different, but that's how I feel. And I feel that, one of my subscribers, if you're watching, you know who you are, who always leaves beautiful comments. Thank you, and hi to you. She has mentioned that she uses markers and, you know, hasn't tried watercolors, and I think definitely go for it. I mean, look how therapeutic it is, and once you get the technique, this is a very simple technique, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, because if you saw my flip through, you know that I have gone a long way. My illustrations weren't as pretty when I first started. You might think they're still not pretty, but to my taste, I like them. And some of you might not think they're pretty. Some of you are very happy with them, so thank you for support. So yeah, you know, you can totally learn, and it's so therapeutic. Like, if you find the right paper, like Fabriano, for example, I would highly recommend. I really enjoyed that paper. Some of you might prefer Arches. I like Arches as well, but it's super expensive, and it's like, you know, sorry, I'm saying like a lot for some reason today. It's paper that is really for artists, and if you mess up, you feel bad because it's so expensive. So that can be quite challenging and off-putting sometimes, and also it's harder to work with, actually. So I'm not sure at the moment what's going on here with this petal, so I'm just going to imagine that it's basically going under this petal. So this is it, and then I'm going to mix up a slightly different color for the stem, and let's have a look. I don't want it to be too different, so I'm going to keep it within the color, and I'm trying to think which color I'm using here so I can share with you, and I can't remember. So I'm going to write it down in the info box, unless actually, let me have a look. I might be able to tell you if I just have a look in my swatches. Oh yes, so it's the carmine. Yeah, it's this color here over there. Okay, so that was a bit of carmine just for the stem. As you can see, it's more on a purpley, so it does stand out slightly, but not too much, which is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my the body of my girl, and yeah, and I will show you in a second. So here is the finished girl. It was very simple, and I didn't spend that much time. It was really quick pen lines, so I'm not too happy with her face. I feel like I hurried, and just actually the other thing is I haven't drawn anything yesterday and maybe even the day before, and I felt, and this is why I always tell you, make sure you do some sort of drawing every day. I felt quite sort of, my hand wasn't there when I was doing her face, so it's not too bad, but it's not, her eyes didn't come out the way I wanted to. So basically the body is very simple, the legs are quite just straight, nothing going on there, and I have added the centers of the flowers. There are some pencil marks which I will go ahead and take off. I added the title, Hydrangea Girl, in a very slim and thin font. I'm not going to go and thicken it up just because it's I think it works quite well in this shape, or with this sort of, how shall I say, composition. And the lips and the cheeks I've done also in ruby, so I just decided to keep it all in one color, nice and simple. And for the hair, it's the Payne's grey that I have featured in my last two-part videos as a convenience color that I added to my St. Petersburg White Nights palette. And it's perfect because this is, sorry for the shaking, this is the grey that I mixed up for the hair, and now I literally don't need to mix up anything. I just go in and add that. So it's such a good color. I'm happy that I added it to my palette. And so that is the girl in full size. Hopefully you can see her. And let's just zoom in quickly, and so that you get everything to see. And those are her legs. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and see you soon. Thanks for watching.